So we're talking about fathers, and fathers can have such a profound influence in our lives. And first, can you give me a few words just to describe your father?
Dad, dad, uh, hardworking. I mean, honestly, you know, of course, terrific and loving. But I saw so little of my dad at sometimes, and I saw a lot of him at sometimes. But my overall idea of my father was a real worker bee. So that's the first thing I'm left with, and I definitely think I got at least half of his gene on that one.
And male-male relationships in particular can be difficult. Is there anything you never got a chance to say to your father that you wish you could have?
I wish I could like talk to him a bit more about like my dreams and my aspirations. But I think I was one of the fortunate sons to spend enough time with my dad. I mean, unfortunately, when he passed, he passed, but he was 96 years old, so he had a really great life. Never sick a day in his age. I never sick a day in his life, so I never saw him like in a bad way. I always saw him working and bringing home food and taking care of the family. So I said pretty much all I had to say to him. I mean, I would have loved to share my dreams a bit more, but those dreams, they evolve so much, you sort of don't know if that's the right time to do it. But I never had, I would say, I couldn't sit down with my dad for hours and have conversations with him like that. We didn't have the time. He didn't have the time, I did. But it wasn't that sort of relationship.
And is there a quality that he had that you wish you had more of?
A bunch of them, a bunch of my, I wish I was harder working. I know I work hard. Um, I wish I were more organized. My dad was like the king of organization. And those are two that really stand out for me.
And so many cues that we get from our dads are nonverbal.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed how you were talking about how you carry yourself. Can you talk a little bit about nonverbal, what you got from
Well,
him?
yeah, I mean, my dad was a musician, professional musician, and he taught music school, and at night he moonlighted in bands, and he played a trombone, and he played jazz, and he played classical, whatever need be. He moonlighted to make extra money for the family, and he did very well doing that. I think he actually made more money moonlighting than he did at a job as a teacher, which I think back when he was teaching was probably a very small amount, meager amount. But I guess what I get from my dad is a sense of style, a sense of awareness of style, and a sense of decorum and how to present yourself. I remember my dad. I almost never saw him. He never wore jeans, and he never had a pair of jeans. That was like a no-no. He never wore sneakers, and most days he would wear a suit and tie. I don't think I ever saw him a day without a suit and tie. He would dress for breakfast. So, I mean, we were very poor, lower middle class family. But he would just have this way about him, and he would like always look sharp and crisp, and spend a lot of time on himself, and that really impressed me to this day. Would not go out of the house without a sport jacket on or some sort of half a suit or something, just sort of dressed up a bit more than normal.
And what was your favorite thing to do together?
I would say we really loved golf. He was one of the first people that sort of played golf with me, so we played a lot of golf together. He was actually much older than me. There was a big gap in years. He had me when he was, I believe, almost 51, 52 years old. So when he was retired, I mean, I was relatively still young, so we weren't like, we weren't going out and like throwing a football around too often because it was just the age thing, and he was always working. But we played a lot of golf. We sat around and we played cards a lot. We played pinochle, which is a sort of Armenian Middle Eastern game that he taught me, and I was sort of a really pretty good at it. I got pretty good at it. But we played hours and hours of pinochle and just, basically told stories.
And is there a favorite memory you have of your dad?
There's a lot of favorite memories. He would every year ask me, and I probably was something into this, I should have read into it about becoming a chef. He would ask me what I wanted to do for my birthday. I was 10 years old, 9 years old, 11. This was like very early birthdays. And I always wanted to be taken to a fancy restaurant. So he would, we both dress up in suits, and he would take me to like the best restaurant in Boston or the best restaurant in Fall River or Providence, and we would drive, and it would be the whole day would be built around having this very luxurious meal, and it was just he and I. And I remember those days really quite a bit. The anticipation of it I still feel today.
And what's the picture you try to paint of your father to your daughters? that when you talk about Grandpa?
That's a good question. I think that the best way for them to get Grandpa is to get Father. So I try to act as a really good father. Hopefully enough of my father comes out in that, and they will get a picture of what their grandfather was like. I think for them it needs a real direction. It has to be once removed only. So I think the deal is I have to act as cool and as responsible as possible and really channel as much as I can. And as much as there are things I want to change as well. I want to be more available for them, not less available. So I think I'm trying to channel as much good things as I possibly can through myself and my own sort of relationship with him, so they can really see it. I don't think they can learn from the second or third generation. I think they have to learn from what's right in front of them.
And your life certainly has had a really interesting narrative, and it's an amazing generational story. When you think about your father and your relationship, what's something that comes to mind?
Well, the fact that I'm a chef, and people always ask me, how I fell into this, and I really didn't fall into it. It really found me, and it definitely started at home with my father's emphasis on food. I mean, talk about farm to table and all that stuff. We were doing that like 40 years ago. I mean, my father would go to the market every single day, not once a week or twice a week. Every single day he was home, he would go to the market, and he would bring home whatever was the best, and my mother would cook it. And to this day, we didn't have things canned. My mother made everything. My father bought it, and I grew up with everything fresh: mayonnaise, sauce, ketchup, yogurt. Everything was made in house, so to speak. So I got used to that, and that sort of just was part of me again. And I discovered along the way that those are my sensibilities, and that is sort of being. Some people say being a snob. Well, if that's a snob, it definitely is something I got from my dad, because he would not get anything other than the best. And it didn't mean it was the most expensive. It was just the best he could find. And to that really is something that I do to this day. So I would say that the best times were him bringing home that food and just smelling it and looking at it and seeing what he brought and whether it was the best grapes or the corn that was fresh, or he would go to a market, I remember in Boston, and get these tomatoes that are incredible. And just the smells of that, and have these memories created that I understand it. And when I smell that again, I think of those days with all the stuff he used to bring home. I mean, a carload of stuff. And he would buy it very cheaply. He would find a way to haggle, and he'd get stuff that was maybe a little off, and my mother would can it, and things like that. So he was a very sharp guy that way.
And finally, so Father's Day, it's not football season.
It isn't, and I don't like football. So.
One of the things dads are going to be doing this weekend is they're going to be eating and hopefully enjoying a drink. Tell us about what you're going to make for us.
What I'm going to make for you?
For Father, what is the ultimate Father's Day dish?
Well, I think for my dad, he would really appreciate something simple. We used to go to a place called Lockover's in Boston, and we used to get steamed lobster and a lobster roll. So for me, I think that I would make him a great lobster roll and a single malt scotch, because that was his sort of preferred drink at the time. And who knew it today is all the rage is single malt scotches. But a couple of cubes of ice, a lobster roll, and a nice cigar after.